So much has been happening around the White Sox lately. Grant Taylor's getting called up, but what hasn't changed is just how important this year's draft is for the rebuild. And let's discuss all that with my guest today on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan, a contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the FanSided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. While there is a lot of hope being showed with the youngsters who have just been called up, and the White Sox just keep adding more as Grant Taylor is set to make his big league debut. We don't know exactly when because he'll be coming out of the bullpen, but I want to discuss the Sox embracing these call-ups along with what they'll do in the MLB draft and the team's future ownership with my guest, James Fox of FutureSox.net. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And James, you got the scoop. You broke the news that Taylor is on his way. But how surprised were you that he is getting called up now?
I get a little bit surprised that it was like today, but not surprised that it was this month. I mean, once I saw him pitch back-to-back outings in Birmingham, I thought it was getting pretty close. I just, I'm sure you've heard the interview. Like, we played a portion of Brian Bannister on our show, and then it was originally on the Spiegel and Holmes show on 670 where he kind of went into the whole plan and the whole thought process. So, like, it just seemed like you're old-fashioned, like they don't really feel like wasting any more bullets in the minor leagues, especially if they think this guy is like basically forced to pitch in relief, like they're kind of saying for now. He's too good in that role to keep pitching in the minors. Like, if you're not going to stretch him out and start him, like, doing this in the big leagues probably does make the most sense.
Yeah, and especially how he was commanding the ball. I mean, he was just pinpointing that 100-mile-an-hour fastball where it is like, why waste any more of those bullets, especially since, his arm has had some issues. It's not that I'm not ready to label him injury prone, but he's had Tommy John, then he missed last year with the lat injury. So I kind of get it. But are you in more of that camp that was a little bit upset that, they were developing now more to his floor? Or is this probably the better course because of what maybe his arm will allow?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's the better. I mean, I was pretty upset, like, when I found out that they were doing this, just because, like, even if he's like a mid-rotation starter, it's way more valuable than him being in the bullpen. But, like, the agent's on board, the kid is on board with this. It just seems like, he just needs so much time in order to, develop into like 150 inning per year starting pitcher, just because of the limited innings that he's had. That they just, they think that this will benefit him and them being in this role. Nobody's ruled out him starting down the road. Look, I kind of think if he's one of the better closers in baseball, like, we're probably not going to see him start, like, anytime soon. But look, it's possible, 2 years from now, they're like, hey, Grant Taylor's going to come to this, spring training as a starter. Some of the mechanical stuff that's like way over my head, like Brian Bannister talking about guys his height don't usually like get this much extension, and the ones who do are hurt all the time. Like, one of the guys he mentioned was Tyler Glass now, that they're just, like, the deliveries just don't lend themselves to being super durable starters. So look, I don't think anybody ever said that he wouldn't be awesome in the bullpen. Like, I think it's very likely that he's really, really good in this role. It's just, if there was any chance to develop him as a starter, that seemed to be the better path. But like, at least they have a plan for this, I guess. And it was a pretty well thought out plan too. And I'm glad they're not totally shutting the door on him starting.
Yeah, I was actually right in the middle, whereas I was maybe a little bit, the only reason was maybe more in context of, okay, great, we're now going to develop another guy to his floor. But at the same point, I mean, they have had success with Chris Sale. Granted, he was a lefty, and Garrett Crochet going this route. So I'm like, okay, it can't hurt. But at the same point, when you look at the righty version, the last time they tried this, it was Michael Kopech. So I was like, well, why don't we just get this whole starter thing out of the way? But I totally kind of, where you're at. At least they haven't shut the door. And the other thing is I've seen this before, granted it was with the Brewers, but same thing with Josh Hader. Granted, again, another lefty, but there was kind of the same talk of, well, should we have him, start every 5 days, or should we deploy him even in multi-innings? So I kind of like what they're doing with that, but do you want to see him be more of a multi-inning type closer? Maybe Peyton Pallette is your traditional ninth inning guy, or is this a guy that, definitely he should come out in the ninth inning?
Yeah, I think with the manager that you have, I think he's just going to use guys in leverage spots. I don't know that anybody's necessarily going to. I mean, look, I think Taylor will get the opportunity to close on this team probably because there's no reason not to. And maybe it's Booser and Steven Wilson for now because you want to trade those guys for whatever you can get for them, right? And then it's Grant Taylor down the road. But I do think Grant Taylor and Pallette should both be in this bullpen and you just kind of figure it out from there. But yeah, you would think like using Taylor strictly in the ninth seems like kind of a waste of everyone's time, right? When this guy could come in fireman style and get 7 outs for you potentially, So we'll see. I mean, look, it's minor league baseball, but it is the AA Southern League. Like nobody touched this guy since he moved to the bullpen. I mean, it's he's throwing over 100 miles an hour consistently. It's 2+ breaking balls. He's just he kind of looks like a reliever, but that's why, the whole thing was, he was like moving up into that Schultz and Smith territory as far as starting pitching prospects. But they do kind of know more than we do as far as like what some of the biomechanics readings say and just whether or not they think they can keep this guy healthy or not. And this seems to be, the path they're going to go down. And I think most casual White Sox fans are going to be happy about it because he's going to be really fun out of the bullpen.
Yeah, I can't wait to see him. And I'm with you. I want to see him actually more of that multi-inning fireman type role. And then I'm really rooting for Peyton Pallette maybe to be your tradition, because I still think you need a traditional ninth inning guy sometimes because you're going to get in those tight games where maybe the guy can't, Taylor isn't available, or again, it's just one of those situations where you need Taylor to do 6th, 7th maybe, and Pallette later, and that's that mindset. But getting back to surprises with call-ups, you had the hunch that maybe the Sox wanted to preserve Kyle Teal's rookie status to possibly earn a 2027 draft pick if he, say, won Rookie of the Year. So what do you think changed their mind to go with promoting him?
I don't know. It wasn't just a hunch. Like I was like way wrong. That one was, and I had talked to other people that were like close to the team.
You were wrong. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I mean, you get things wrong sometimes. My gosh.
Yeah, often. And even like guys covering the team kind of were under the impression that like the club really just wanted him to catch more because he really, like, if you look at his history, he didn't catch that much. He caught as a junior at Virginia and he was pretty good at it. But before that, Virginia had 2, I think, 1st-round pick catchers. So he was kind of playing all over the place. And even in high school, he played all over. So like, while he's pretty good at catcher and he projects there long term, it's just like the position's really hard. So it was kind of said that like they want him to get basically a full season there. And while you're bad, right, one of the benefits of that is if he gets less than 45 days of control this year, then he's eligible for Rookie of the Year next year. And one of those extra 1st-round picks that you might get, like if he wins it. So I was just kind of under the impression that they were going to slow play him and wait. I was wrong. Chris Getz doesn't seem to care. He's like trying to get all these guys up here right now. And look, I didn't think like a torrid offensive pace. Like I didn't really think he was a force the issue guy because they were worried about defense behind the plate, right? But apparently it didn't really. I mean, he was really good offensively in Charlotte. I don't think that he's not ready, right? So there were people that were like, "Oh, you were wrong," and like I don't care, right? Whatever. But like I was still excited that they called him up. Like I'd like to turn on the game and watch Kyle Teal play in Chicago. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's interesting. You got both those guys. I mean, Corey Lee is like the collateral damage now. I'm curious to see what happens with him. My guess is they'll trade him at some point, but you don't want to trade him for nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm with you in terms of I would like to see that at some point. Actually, I'd prefer maybe you try Teal again in the outfield and at first base, and maybe have him catch every now and again. I was kind of thinking they would go with the 3 catcher rotation, but I get why you want to go with the 2 type of thing. And I think it was Ian Eskridge, your co-host, actually did make up the point. I mean, it's really hard to win Rookie of the Year if you don't play for Boston and New York. So I kind of see maybe why Chris Getz was like, you know what, scrap, maybe that potential type of gamble on that. So let's get into some draft talk, as next month it's going to be a major critical moment for the White Sox, and having a strong class will be pivotal to the franchise future success. So let's discuss that with James after the break. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is a reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 plus parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. And I keep telling my brother-in-law, he's in the plumbing business. Tell your company to use Supply House with all the advantages they provide to the skilled trades. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't get the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. Joining me on today's show is James Fox, managing editor of FutureSox.net and the co-host of the Future Sox podcast. Which James, by the way, I have this listener that sometimes emails me, and I think he wants it to be an audience of one, but he told me you guys are the most positive podcast there ever is. And the one thing I said is, well, of course they can be positive. You get to talk about the prospects. You get to talk about hope every day. Where can we find all your great stuff?
We talk about that. We don't talk about the big league team. So yeah, it does come off pot, and we're agreeing all the time. It's we should fabricate arguments probably more, but yeah, just futuresox.com will get you to futuresox.net. We have our YouTube channel where all of our podcasts are recorded there, or you could watch the live show, and then basically everywhere podcasts are found on Apple, Spotify, everywhere there. I know we're going to talk draft here. We've started releasing draft profiles. I think we have 2 on the site. We'll do about 14 or 15 of those. So just in anticipation of the July draft, that's always kind of interesting for the White Sox.
Yeah, and I thought you'd get a kick out of that. And I even responded back. I'm like, well, yeah, I listen to Future Sox too. I love Ian and James. I have them on the show. They're great people. So, that's why I was like, okay, and they get to talk about it. And you guys do great work in talking about the prospects. As I said, it's one of the best places to go to get your White Sox prospect coverage, because that's where the hope is. And James, your latest mock draft on FutureSox.net has the White Sox taking prep shortstop. Hopefully I wrote this down correct. Daniel Pierce, correct? Why did the White Sox go with him?
I just think, with the rest of what I think they're right in the mix of this prep shortstop class. I think something interesting in this class is I think there's about 10 players that seem to be forming a consensus, but I didn't want to take a pitcher, so I didn't, right? I think that there's 4 college lefties. No, there's 3 college lefties, I believe. And then there's a prep right-hander, Seth Hernandez. That's just an absolute stud. I think he might be the best player in the whole class, but he's a prep righty, and those guys fall, for whatever reason. And then Kyson Witherspoon of Oklahoma is in that mix too. I think they want to take a bat. I've heard a lot about them wanting to take a shortstop. I think Billy Carlson, Corona High School in California, would be the dream scenario for me. I kind of think he'll be gone, but the Baseball America mock draft today had him. So I think there is a group after him. Daniel Pierce from Georgia is more of your coach's kid type grinder guy that's definitely going to stay at shortstop. And then, they've been mocked with JoJo Parker, who's the best prep guy out of Mississippi, who can really, really hit, but he's not going to stay at shortstop. That's the thing. There's 4 or 5 of these guys, and most of them are probably going to play second or third. Once that time comes around and they get to the big league. So, they could flip, they could take a college bat. College bats fly up the board. Merrick Houston of Wake Forest is a guy that they've been in to see a bunch. There's the Jace Laviolette rumors, even though that's pretty frightening. We can get into that if you want, but yeah, they're going to get a good player. They could go a bunch of different routes. My guess is they try to save a little bit of money, because I know for a fact that they've been all over like prep guys in the mid rounds, a lot of prep bats. What has kind of happened in the draft now with NIL and with the transfer portal, college players are more expensive. So it's good, right? That they're like getting paid to stay in school or whatever. But a guy that typically you could get for 300, 400,000, maybe might be like 8 or 900,000. And at that point, like you could just afford to pay high school guys instead.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to jump into I mean, it seems. I mean, I know the 2026, it's so far off, but it's got a lot of stud shortstops at the top too. But it seems like the one strength that this class has is at the prep shortstop level. And since they passed on Connor Griffin last year, doesn't it make sense to maybe just say, hey, this is a chance to get a redo? I mean, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have taken Hagen Smith. I was happy about Hagen Smith, but they need bats, and it seems like this is the type of draft where it's like, yeah, why don't you go grab a shortstop? Even if they have to move off, that's the whole point of getting a prep shortstop because of their versatility.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I always like taking the prep guy. Like, I think there is a strong argument to be made to like where the best case scenario would be that they land a college bat that kind of fits in with the rest of their like young core here. You can't create a guy, right? Like, I don't know that guy exists at the 10 pick. Like, I just kind of think if you're not willing to take pitching or all the pitchers are gone, like I just think a prep guy is probably going to be better than the college options that are on the board. And look, you'll see them mocked with everybody. I mean, in the Baseball America mock today, they had Billy Carlson, like I just said, but it had them linked to the 2 hitters from Tennessee who I think both would be pretty big reaches at 10. Gavin Killen is a Wisconsin kid who they know really well, who can really hit, but it's second base only. There's not a ton of wood bat success. The other guy, Fisher, is like a first baseman with power. Like we've seen that story before. So, and then Laviolette just, like if they trust their new hitting infrastructure, like, okay, but he hit 258 in college this year and struck out a ton. And the swing and miss rate was pretty scary. Guys that K that much in college, it doesn't usually work out. And I did write about Jace Laviolette on the site today. So, the positives are there too. But that pick would scare me a little bit.
Yeah, and I want to actually that was my next question. I'll admit I'm a little super scout. I only watched him a few times this year, but the one thing that did kind of scare me where last year, let's say Jack Caglione, the reason why he just scared me was because I'll admit, first base fatigue with Andrew Vaughn. But Laviolette, and I know he's in the outfield, he terrifies me because, yes, he's got pop. Yes, he's got a lot of potential. And if you look at that, but he really declined this year. And out of that, he was very streaky. And right now, you're dealing with trying to reclaim the value of a Luis Robert Jr., who's been the epitome of streaky. And that's the thing that scares me a lot about Laviolette.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's a lot of in zone K. That was the thing about Cags. Like Cags people were worried about his chase rate, but he didn't strike out that often. Jace Laviolette really struggled in the SEC this year. And he hit 250. Like I'm not like, this might be like the last time I ever come on your show and talk about batting average because I really don't care about it that much. But like in college, when you hit 258 and strike out as much as he does, like they're just glaring red flags right now. Maybe Ryan Fuller is watching him and he's like, ooh, like we can fix this and it's fine. I do know that the scouting director, Mike Shirley, knows Laviolette very well because Mike Shirley was Michael Early's hitting coach in Indiana, and Michael Early's the head coach at Texas A&M. So look, if it's Laviolette, like I won't be totally stunned. I just think there's probably some other options on the board there.
Yeah, and I'd be actually also disappointed because I think they're going to be falling into the trap then. Like we got to get competitive by 2027. We got to get the guy right there. Where it's like, look, the one reason why I'm fine with high school is everything should be up for winning the World Series by 2029. You can still be competitive by 2027 by competing for like a wild card of that. But the steps you need to take, do what the Tigers did, for example, in 2019. Grab Riley Green, grab the high school guy or CJ Abrams, that type of stuff. Learn from your mistakes and get a guy that could be a long-term piece that may take a little bit, but you can drop in and will eventually be ready to go for 2029, like with, say, Caleb Bodemer too, like to those two guys,
Yeah, and the high school guys come quicker than ever now too, just with like all the training and how much they're playing. They're quicker to the big leagues than they've been in the past. So Yeah, the one thing about Laviolette too, though, is that he does play center field, and he's probably going to play center field for a while. He's probably right field eventually, but if you took him, he could go right into your minor league system and play center field, which is not, it's not a first base Cags thing.
Yeah, and they do need more pieces like a center fielder for the future. Whereas, I agree with you in terms of shortstop, you do want prep, but if they have to translate to second base, for example, you've got a lot of options in your system right now at second base that could potentially be guys that could at least fill the spot. You even got one right now, Chase Mydroth. If Colson Montgomery can stop getting hit by pitches and be ready to go, you've got a potential, option there. Well, let's discuss the ultimate hope, and that is Justin Ishbia taking over as controlling owner with James, who did a great job of calling out those saying that Jerry would not sell to him eventually, and let's discuss that after the break on Locked On White Sox. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control of your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. I know my wife, she was getting all stressed out tracking all of our expenses, but no more since we started using Monarch Money. We've been using it to make sure we can watch, where we should be cutting on spending on things we don't need, plan out saving for retirement, which for us is actually coming sooner than we think. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major podcast platforms. Here with James Fox, managing editor of FutureSox.net and co-host of the Future Sox podcast. And James, actually, before I get into the Ishbia news, I just wanted to get one more question in about the draft. Is there any players that are actually worth watching that maybe the Sox could be tied to in the College World Series that starts, I believe, on Friday, as we're now down to 8?
Yeah, so Tennessee just got beat, right? So, yeah. I mean, like Iva Arquette is a long shot at Oregon State. He's probably the best player, the best position player in the class, so he'll likely be gone. There's lots of interesting pitching, though, that's going to go, like, in front of them, like and the name's escaping me right now. Of course, Cade Anderson, the lefty from LSU. He may be the favorite to go number 1 overall right now, which is pretty interesting. There's a couple of catchers who I don't think they'll take. But yeah, it was a pretty loaded, like, regional field. I think Arkansas, there's a shortstop at Arkansas, Waya Aloy. I don't really think he's an option for them. I don't, obviously if they go prep, none of those guys are playing in this tournament, right? But it was pretty good. It was pretty packed with prospects, like in the super regional. I'd have to come over the list and see exactly which teams are left, though, currently.
Yeah, I think Arizona with Summerhill.
Yeah, so they have Summerhill. So Summerhill he's a Whitney Young product, so he's a local kid. The thing with him is, like, it's whether you think he can play center field or not. If you think he's a corner, he's probably not worth the 10th pick. But he'll probably go in the 11th or 20 range.
Yeah, but knowing the White Sox, they were like, well, we got to get a major league player because Jerry Reinsdorf is still going to own the team for at least 5 more years at the soonest.
That's a great segue. Yeah.
Yes, you like that. And then 2034 at the latest. So just how amused were you when you finally saw the news? Jerry is eventually selling to billionaire Justin Ishbia, especially when, like, for example, USA Today's Bob Nightingale tried to say, Justin, he just didn't like Minnesota's balance sheet. That's why he abandoned his bid to own the Twins.
Well, the thing that's funny is, like, when guys like Bob Nightingale say, like, oh, Justin Ishbia has been trying to buy the White Sox for years, which, look, might be true, right? But I think one of the biggest points, I thought, to the John Greenberg and Dan Hayes, like, reporting initially was the fact that, Justin Ishbia was supposedly, like, at the 5-yard line to buy the Twins. I mean, this thing was super close. And then Jerry Reinsdorf convinced him to not buy the Twins and put more money into the White Sox for some reason, right? And now we found out why, right? Because he would rather own the White Sox than the Twins. There's a path to that ownership, whatever this deal is, right? We don't know all of it. He thought that was like a better deal than buying the Twins. I just thought it was hilarious because it was reported at the time that this was a Reinsdorf idea. And then you have people like Bob Nightingale who are like, oh, well, I mean, he's not selling anytime soon. This is Ishbia is trying to get him to, like, that's not true. It's just not. Like, I think with like the original reporting, like you could tell who read the John Greenberg and Dan Hayes stories and who didn't. You know, it was pretty evident, like who does not have athletic subscriptions. It was all in there. This whole thing was basically set. And, you know, was there a path to ownership? Oh, the White Sox are saying no. Well, of course the White Sox are saying no, because Jerry Reinsdorf wants to release this like on his own timeline. And now it's out there. And now we know kind of the details. Now, what does that look like? Are they going to have a $250 million payroll 2 years from now with Justin Ishbia's money? Like, probably not, right? But I do think he's going to, like, help them build the stadium. I don't know where it's going to be, like whether it's going to be on the 78 or somewhere else. But, you know, I think that's a big factor in this. I think, you know, paying down organizational debt, whatever that means, and then the stadium. I think that's like the next big domino is like a plan for the stadium with Justin Ishbia footing the bill for a lot of it, because he knows, like with the new stadium, if he takes over in 2029, and I think this is going to be 2029. That's when Jerry's sweetheart deal's over, you know, with the state for guaranteed rate field. My guess is 2029 is the last year of the reign of terror. 2034 is just kind of put in there to scare us and nudge us a little bit. But, you know, I think it'll be then, and we'll see. And, you know, we have years and years and years to debate whether Justin Ishbia is like the right guy. But, you know, I think most of us are ready and willing to try something else at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, you know, I think it was a Score when he was still with the Score. Dan Bernstein reported that Justin Ishbia is not like his brother Matt, where, you know, totally hands-on that, where he's a little bit more calm and collective. And then on the flip side yes, are the Suns somewhat of a crazy dumpster fire right now? Yes, but part of it is because they're willing to take swings. I'd rather have somebody
100%.
willing to take swings. And a lot of the toxic work environment is supposedly from the previous ownership. Now, obviously, there's some issues with the United Wholesale Mortgage, but again, that's Matt, not Justin.
And it's also a salary cap sport. It's totally different. And like, he spent a bunch of money, okay, and it didn't work. Great. I mean, he spent a bunch of money and traded a bunch of picks, and now he's going to turn around and trade some of these players for more picks and try to, you know, switch things around. He also did like a $2 value meal at the stadium. Like, Jerry Reinsdorf would never do something like that. You know, you can get a hot dog and a Coke for $4 at a Suns game, you know? So it's not all about, you know, the on-field success. I think the Ishbias are smart enough to turn the Suns into a contender, like at some point. You know, that shouldn't be the thing. You know, it shouldn't be, but the Suns. I mean, the White Sox have 3 playoff series victories in 40 years of Reinsdorf ownership. I mean, come on, guys. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, and none of that. It's a totally different way of constructing rosters to begin with, too. I mean, you have 20 draft picks, for example, in baseball. And now, granted, not all of them hit, but you still have 20 and international free agency, and you have all these other avenues where in the NBA, it's you better race to the bottom, hope you get the number 1 pick or maybe the number 2 or number 3, depending on the draft, to get a generational talent. And otherwise, you have to try to trade for a generational talent. And that's just how these things work. And the other thing is the Suns, they took a swing at the old way of doing things of now, you know, where you got to get 3 superstars. Well, now that model's starting to go away, as we're seeing in this NBA finals, where it's like, you don't really need 3 NBA superstars. Maybe you need 1 or 2 and just a really deep team that could shoot threes. That's the other thing. If you can shoot threes, just like in baseball, hit home runs and strike guys out, you know?
Yeah, and like in regards to that a little bit, like I'm not surprised that Justin Ishbia doesn't want anywhere near this thing, like right now. I mean, I wouldn't want to take over till after 2027 because it really sounds like the labor talks are going to be pretty, you know, extensive and like not great, you know. So I could totally see where he doesn't want to deal with that. And Jerry's not the labor hawk that he used to be, where he's, you know, siding with like the toughest owners to screw the players. He's just kind of along for the ride at this point, but I still understand why Justin Ishbia, like he wants like all that like in place, like by the time he takes over.
Well, and especially if you need somebody to negotiate with the Illinois, stadium board for like even a short-term lease. Say you haven't gotten the plot of land, maybe he does want to go to the Reciter. Maybe he does actually want to renovate the parking lots around Rate Field, that type of stuff. It can't hurt to have an ally like Jerry. And actually, I'm glad that you made that point, because this is my final question I wanted to ask you, because I've listened to the podcast yesterday and you made that point. Was I get where he wants to, but however, like say if you're Steve Cohen, one of your fellow multi-billionaires, because he would probably be the second richest owner, I believe, once Ishbia buys.
Yeah, it's close. It's like 5 billion or something,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
Yeah, and you're the players union. Wouldn't you want this mega wealthy owner to join the cause to maybe add more revenue by the time this negotiation comes in, maybe get rid of the Cohen tax? Or do you think the rest of the owners would be like, well, wait, we got to make this even tighter?
I think it behooves the White Sox to side with the large market clubs, because they're like expected to be one. You know what I mean? Like I get like Jerry's friends with a lot of these smaller market owners, but Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't get competitive balance picks, and he doesn't get extra international bonus pool space, and he doesn't get first round picks when he loses free agents. Like those are small market team perks. You don't get any of those perks. Like you're a large market team, so act like it. So I kind of think that would be part of the. I think the interesting dynamic would be Ishbia versus Ricketts, and we don't do, like I joked with Ian the other night that I always find a way to bring up the Cubs on the show. And it was just like out of like a comparison or something, because I listen to a lot of sports talk radio. But that's what guys like John Greenberg are saying now, is that would be funny, is if, Justin Ishbia is the guy that gets like Tom Ricketts to like spend finally.
Yeah, that would be obviously the thing for like Justin Ishbia to be like, hey, now am I going to build this stadium, but then I'm going to spend gobs and gobs of money, where Ricketts is like, well, I still have to afford my mortgage payments on Gallagher Way.
Who's got the bigger northern suburban home? Probably Ishbia.
Yeah, I mean, he's building that 87-acre or 87 million compound. I mean, that's the other reason why, like, when people are saying, well, I saw the overreaction, we got to wait 5-10 years, or after the fire announcement, well, this is it, they're moving to Nashville. I'm like, I'm not going to move to Nashville, okay?
No, they're not moving.
Especially when the Ishbia announcement, it's like, why would Justin build this compound? Because if he builds this compound and then moves the team, he ain't going to have that compound much longer. There will be people in Bridgeport that will storm Winnetka.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball doesn't want to move an existing team to Nashville. Like the owners get a ton of money for expansion franchises. They're already mad about Vegas. Like they don't want to move a team to Nashville. They'd rather form a new team in Nashville and get the 5 billion split or whatever it is for expansion franchises.
Yeah, I've always said the relocation is just a dark cloud based on maybe whoever gets left out with musical chairs. And even then, the two markets that I would say that you want to make sure are definitely taken care of, I would say is Nashville, and I would say Salt Lake. It sounds like they've got actually a pretty good financing structure. So if you can make those two markets, I don't really see Major League Baseball being like, hey, let's go to Portland or let's go to Charlotte. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
All right, well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow with a Way Back Wednesday segment. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion with James Fox at FutureSox.net. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. And James, where can we find all your great stuff?
Just at FutureSox.net. Like I said, we have the YouTube channel. There's articles up on the website. You can find us anywhere podcasts are found as well.
All right, well, have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.